Good evening, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the CrowCast Weekend Wrap, the second of our preseason series this year so far, and still coming to grips with this wonderful new technology that we're using. So please bear with us. We don't have Macca up on the screen tonight because of that very reason, but we'll still hear his dulcet tones. How are you, Macca?
Not bad. Now you've hidden me in the toilet, mate.
Well, you know, I mean, I don't want to make a big fuss of it, but no, just I'm out to lunch today and I didn't have a lot of time, and I tried to fix it and I ran out of time. So you're just going to have to be in the ether tonight. Just a voice from above, but that's all right. I'm sure you'll have plenty to say, and we've got a little bit to cover, but before we do, of course, thank you to everyone who's joined us on YouTube and Discord and Facebook and Twitter. we had a fantastic opening opening episode to the season, Macca. I'll get my words out in a minute. The most we've ever had in terms of listenership and viewership. So I must say a big thank you to everyone who's supporting the CrowCast this year. Don't forget to tell your mates the production will get better. But hopefully the content will override any sort of visual glitches that you might see. So, of course, we didn't do any of this last week, Mac, but don't forget we are live and interactive, and that's one of the big things about our shows. So if you are on the Discord live studio audience and you wish to have something to say, then we might even let you say something today. What do you reckon, Macca?
Yeah. Well, you know, they've got something intelligent to say, and there's some pretty intelligent blokes out there, so I would expect something from them.
Why do you have to put that caveat on it? Like, seriously? Like that's
You want somebody that... Mate, we want at least to be half intelligent.
Well, I guess so. Look, the only other announcement I have to make is that at the moment we're going to stop the live audio stream. The live audio stream was pretty dodgy last week, and I have a feeling it was because of all the stuff that I'm running on the computer to get this going, Mac. So we will be we will be uploading the audio as a podcast as usual, but we won't be running a live audio stream for the foreseeable future, at least until I can get that sorted out. There's probably a few settings that I can mess around with to get that sounding a bit better, because it was a bit scratchy last week and I had to fiddle around with it. I think that's all the announcements, Mac.
Okay.
I did also take the feedback from people who said the flag behind me was distracting. So you won't have to put up with the flag tonight. Yes, and I am looking a bit washed out because I'm still messing around with colour settings and whatnot. So we're getting there. Macca. Like next week, because I've prototyped next week's show, and you'll all be shocked and amazed. So just put up with it this week.
Look, it wouldn't be the show without a technical problem, mate.
Well, I think that's our signature, isn't it, Mac?
It is. It's what makes us unique.
Exactly. Apart from our amazing insight. Speaking of insight, mate, we had a pretty good win against the Weagles on the weekend. A lot of people downplaying it, and yes, the West Coast have been an average side, but they put out their best 22. They've got a decent defence, with Barris and McGovern there, and they've got some strong midfielders with Yeo and Gaff and a few others. So, I mean, it's not as if they're a terrible team.
No, and I'll tell you what, young Harley Reid, I do like the look of him, mate. I thought he's a boy man. He loves the physicality side of it.
Yeah,
He's going
yeah.
to be something special.
Certainly made an effort to ensure that people realised that he wasn't going to be intimidated.
I loved it.
And they will benefit from him. And I think he's, there's been massive raps on the kid and their comparisons to Judd and all the rest of it. And, that's obviously premature. But I think he's going to be a very solid player for them. I really do. I think he's going to be, he's going to slot into that midfield nicely. A little bit of Horn Francis about him, but I reckon a little bit more polished than Horn Francis, Mac.
Well, when you said the Horn Francis, I was going to say exactly that he has some of the traits of Horn Francis, but he's got more polish, definitely more polish.
Yeah, so it'll be interesting to see how he develops.
And a few more tricks as well, I reckon.
Oh, look, maybe let's not downplay Jason's future because he's a gun. But certainly Harley Reid has got it all before him. So, mate, so it was about an 8-goal win in the end, and some really good signs from a couple of players who were probably battling for a spot, and none more so than young Sam Berry, who I was so pleased to see have a good, solid game this week.
Have not seen him play as well as that ever. Never.
That was. I have. He's had some games like that before, but it's been a while.
And, well, I just thought his game was pretty complete, and I really did like his game. He had 22 disposals, and he had 7 tackles, and he was on the ground though about 72% of the game. But I did like the way that his physicality was excellent, and I reckon he's picked up a yard in pace, mate.
I don't know about pace. He's always been he's had good burst speed, Mac. He looks to have slimmed down a little bit. He's very trim and lean, and he's got that core strength that really sets him apart. Like he has got a good first 5 steps, and I think sometimes just the fact that he can burst through those tackles and get clear sort of gives the impression of pace. But he's always been like that.
Well, it's definitely he had a pretty lean year last year, and if you're looking at who was playing what last year compared to how they played this week, his was the largest leap in my opinion.
Most definitely, yeah.
And it was pleasing to see because it does create a little bit of confusion too, because we've got a lot of people now vying for the mid spots, and it's a question of how we balance it, and whether at times we will have it probably all physical, at times we'll have people that are runners in there as well. There's going to be a lot of competition to actually get in there.
Well, there were at various stages a combination of Laird, Crouch and Berry as our starting mids, Mac, and they were winning clearances with that setup.
They were.
And you talk about Sam's outside pace, and his ability to burst through and break tackles, and maybe yes, he's a ball getter and he's an inside player and all the rest of it. But maybe we get a bit hung up on that sort of stuff sometimes. Maybe it's just a matter of having your best 3 players in.
Well, it was interesting too because you mentioned those 3 players, and all those 3 players got the ball a hell of a lot. And I thought Crouch, big tick. I thought his usage of the ball was far better than he was doing at stages and in the past. He's really set his game in that area.
Well, Macca, for mine, he was our best player, to be honest. I know Riley O'Brien got a stack of it, but for mine, Matty Crouch was our best player. And that's the best I've seen him play since his All-Australian year in 2017. And if that's what we're going to get from Matt, day in, day or week in, week out, then I'm quite happy to have him in, because at his best and kicking the ball forward, and he's kicking the ball now with some length, obviously his groins have freed up. Whatever Burgess has been doing, and I want to talk about Burgess in a minute, but whatever Burgess has done since taking over at the Crows and managing Crouch's body and his fitness, it's worked. He looks so much freer across the ground, and he's kicking the ball long. And Matt Crouch in that sort of form, with the amount of ball that he gets, is almost like a new recruit, because he was down and out 18 months ago.
Yep. And not only just his kicking, some of his handballs when he was being pressured in tight, they just weren't wild handballs to nobody. They were wild handballs to a teammate in the clear, and that's very hard to do when you're being hammered physically yourself.
Absolutely. The only question that I will continue to have with Matty is his defensive work and whether he gets found out on the rebound. We tend to try and offset that with our defensive structures. But look, if he's going to get the ball 30 times and use it effectively, 2/3 of that, those disposals, then and you know how I feel about Matt Crouch, Mac. I'm a harsh critic of his, but in this sort of form, I'll pick him every day of the week.
Yep. It's an interesting thing because, I had him as very close to our best, if not our best, and if we can do that all year, he'll be very, very handy because when you've got a bloke like Rankin in there and you've got him on the outside that you can just feed it to, it makes a massive difference.
Oh, well, I was going to mention Rankin because I was very pleased to see that he was at the first centre bounce. I think that signals the club's intention to use him a fair amount of time through the midfield. He is an absolute credit to himself, Macca. I'll continue to say this. He has exceeded my expectations by such a long way, and I think the expectations of many, because I don't think there's many people around that would have expected us to get this sort of output from Isaac Rankin.
Yeah, well, you're spot on, Dean, because I'm probably one of them. I thought we were overpaying when we gave pick 5 for him. When I look at it now, but if he's going to play like that this whole year, I mean, what he gave us last year was very good. But if he can, I thought he was at a different level again this week, and if we're going to get that out of him, well, he's like a pick 1, isn't it? Not rather than a pick 5.
Look, and you've got to take hats off to the recruiting staff. No one probably rated Jordan Dawson as highly as we did. Maybe the Swan. Yeah, but I mean, in the general football public, I don't think many people expected Geordie to take the next step the way he has and become a club captain and a leader by example, and just become a midfield powerhouse like he has. And similarly with Rankin, probably most people expected him to be an Eddie Betts replacement. He is so much more than an Eddie Betts replacement. I don't think he'll ever replace Eddie Betts because he was amazing. But in terms of his output around the ground and his ability to run through the midfield and cause real damage, I don't think there were many people that expected that.
No, I'm with you. You really do have to give our recruitment team credit for that, because we do over the years we've given them a real bashing, and quite rightly at times. But in the last, say, 3 years, we have to say they've been spot on. And again, even this year, that they could. There's guys they probably could have picked up and traded for, but they would have been medium type players, and instead they traded up to get a guy who in the long run should be a very, very good player for us. So I think they've really lifted their game. Yep.
It's Raid in the chat, who's actually the Arab child, and I wish he'd just change his name because it really frustrates me. He compares him to Cyril Rioli. I'm looking at a Shai Bolton. I reckon Rankin is our Shai Bolton, to be honest with you.
Good comparison. I think it's a better comparison.
All right. Who else have we got? I thought our defence looked a bit better today. It was great to see Geordie Butts back. I know a lot of people have got knocks on Jordan Butts, but I think we're better structured with him in the side. And I still think he's our fullback. I know we've got the Irishman and a couple of others. I'd prefer to see them playing second and third tall roles. And I thought Geordie, for his first hit out back, considering he's had so little football over the last few months, I thought it was pretty good.
Yeah, I have to agree with you. He's always been one that I have my heart in my mouth at times when he's going near the ball or when the ball's going near him. But I have to say that every time I had that fear, I thought he ended up playing pretty well. I mean, he took some very good saving marks. He spoilt at times, and overall, yeah, he got a good solid path for his game, in my opinion. It was really good to have him back.
So another one that's going to shock you, Macca, if Riley O'Brien continues to play like this, he will be the All-Australian Ruckman this year.
Honestly, Fiend, I don't know what they'd put a retro rocket up his bum or something. I've never seen him move over the ground like that at all, ever. And
the problem is... Sorry, go on.
Well, he's always been an unco, but he wasn't just going for the taps, and he's worked out very well what the new rules are. You're allowed to put a hand on the chest as long as you're going for the ball, and did extremely well because he has got a good physical mass. But some of his pace around the ground getting the ball was incredible. I just couldn't believe what I was seeing at times.
He, apologies to the people watching that I just flicked around the cameras there. His proactive work is what struck me, Macca. I think he's always going to have his limitations as a ruckman, and I've always said with Riley that his one wood is his work around the ground. And it's still not taking a huge amount of marks, but if he can get some ground ball into his game and become a link person, in our transition, he will, and if he has a season like he's played in the preseason, then hats off to him. He's taken his game to another level. But I wonder whether he can sustain it against really good opposition, because let's face it, the Eagles didn't really have a great ruckman to put up against him. But we've seen it 2 weeks in a row now, and I hope he can sustain it, because if he can sustain it, he will certainly be in the top 3 ruck in the competition.
Well, he absolutely monstered Williams, and Williams is only a guy on the way up, but he's a long way from being where he should be. So in terms of that, he will, as you say, he'll meet ruckmen who are a lot more skillful and a lot better than that. But what really impressed me apart from the ruck work was what he did around the ground, and he's got more possessions than I remember getting for a damn long time, and they were all earned, and some of those he chased damn hard for as well. I just thought his involvement in the play in general was excellent, absolutely excellent.
Yeah,
he did actually. I don't know whether you know that he actually did 8 centre clearances himself.
Yeah, and when you combine that with Riley Thilthorpe chopping out, who's also a beast below his knees, it becomes a pretty potent sort of a 1-2 punch in terms of our centre ruckman. I dare say we might see O'Brien play a few cameos up forward, depending on the situation. We've got Burgess in the wings if we want to stretch a team. But what we need is Riley's around the ground output, and if he can sustain his preseason form, then that's exactly what he's going to give us, and I won't have any complaints with him if that's what we get every week.
Yeah, look, and he's uniquely fit. I've never seen him ever anything like that, and even his shape is different.
Well, let's talk about that, because I've noticed over the preseason the shape of a few of our players changed. Sam Berry we've already talked about. You just mentioned Riley O'Brien. Tex is as fit as I've ever seen him.
Yes.
Even Darcy Fogarty has trimmed down. I think, what are we, 3rd year into Burgess's program?
Yep.
Second pre-season, second full pre-season for Burgess, and I think we are going to see the benefits of a world-class fitness coordinator, because our boys just look a bit harder and they look a bit leaner this year, if you ask me.
Well, I reckon they do. They're not some of them not as bulky as they used to be, but they're hardened in the sense of physically hardened, without being big overloaded muscle beasts. They're athletically hardened.
Yeah, and again, Arab Child makes a good comment in the chat, because I agree. They've got that real Melbourne hardened feel about them. It's not a big bruising, muscly sort of thing. It's just hard bodies. You know, you saw the way Berry was able to initiate that bump before he kicked his first goal in the forward lines. That's not only strength, but also a bloke who's very confident in his strength, confident in what he's able to do. So that's going to be a real plus for us. And obviously they'll have plenty of endurance. And look, we're not the only team that has fantastic fitness staff, but I think Burgess has been able to take our squad up to an elite fitness standard. I don't think fitness will be an issue for our team. I think we'll be able to run out games. I think we won't get pushed off the ball. Our younger players have got another year into them. Blokes like Pedler and Berry, etc. Rochelle have got another year into them. I think Josh Rochelle hopefully will benefit from Darren Burgess's work, because as we spoke about last week, you know, he was starting off the back foot, coming through juniors during COVID. So, you know, that's a key ingredient to us starting to contend for finals, Mac.
Yep. Shelley had a few runs through the middle as well. He had 3 clearances himself, Rochelle. So, he kicked 3 goals up forward. He and Rankin, they do have a very good understanding between those two.
Well, I think it was Jordan Lewis made a very good point on the commentary during the game, talking about the relationships between the players and the chemistry between the players. And, you know, a couple of times they passed off and they probably didn't need to. But he said, you know, it's those little things that build that connection and build that chemistry amongst the group. And, you know, 2 players connecting up in Rochelle and Rankin, you could do a lot worse, couldn't you? So...
a very nice pair indeed. And not to mention we've also got Soligo in the wings as well, who came in the second half, and he looked, and somebody said in the chat, I think, can't quite get that name, but they when he came on, I think he had about 14 touches or something in the second half when he came on. And he looked good. So our options are really good.
Yeah. So a couple of other shout-outs in defence. I thought Michael Annie looked a lot better this week. Didn't look as hesitant. I felt he looked more assured and back to the lad that we know. He'll certainly benefit from a season under his belt. Obviously, the danger will be the second-year blues that so many of these kids get, but it was a good game by him, I thought.
Excellent game. I thought he was really good. He would have been in my best players, actually. I thought he's probably the best player of the back line, I thought. Chase Jones still a little quiet, I thought. Kind of struggled to get into the game a bit, Matt. He did. I remember, I think it was maybe it was the third quarter. I was thinking, where's Jones? I can't remember seeing him a lot. And then all of a sudden he started getting a couple of kicks. Now, I don't know what his time on the ground was, but he didn't get a massive amount of possessions. And,
no.
But look, he's you know, he played very well last year, towards the end of last year, and he did play well the previous weeks. I've got no problems with him. He'll be okay.
Yeah. Mitch Hinge is an interesting one. Obviously, he copped some injuries to the back end of last season, and he's come back and, you know, he's a funny one, Mitch, because he will always go for his kicks, right? He'll always he'll never bug out and take the sideways chip, the safe one. But it resulted in a lot of turnovers by foot on the weekend. I felt that he looked a little bit. I felt like he looked a bit more on pace this week in terms of being in the game. But a lot of people wringing their hands about, hinge. He'll be fine. I've got so much time for him, and I reckon, shaking the rust out, he'll be better for
it. It's amazing because he is normally a very, very good kick, but he just had a day where he did struggle to hit targets.
Well, it was a bit all over the shop last week as well. He's just such a bull off half back, and when he's on socking, that left foot is laser. So, I'm willing to give him the benefit. He's got another couple of weeks to on the track, and I'm certainly not worried about him at this stage. In fact, I was quite happy to see him get a little bit more of the ball and be a little bit more proactive. Up forward, Tex obviously did all he had to do. Our small forwards we've talked about. Thilthorpe looked all right up forward, Mac.
Dropped a couple early that he should have taken. I thought there's probably about maybe 3 that in the first couple of quarters that he probably should have held. But then he started to get them, started to hold them. And once he got started to hold him, unfortunately, of course, he jarred his knee and came off. And
so before we talk about his knee, because it's actually a strained meniscus, apparently.
A torn
meniscus, yeah.
Yeah.
So that might be a few weeks, I think.
I've had that torn meniscus, and it's not doesn't take them long to fix it up. They just a couple of holes and get in your knee and just go in there and if it's badly torn and got a funny shape, they'll cut, they'll nick off whatever needs to be taken off. That's not the hard part. It's probably about a 3 to 4 week recovery after that. So he could probably miss, I think, anything up to 3 games, I think.
Yeah, maybe 4, because he's got some knee problems anyway. I did see him a couple of times again, Macca, run under the ball. I don't know whether you were paying attention.
I did see. I can remember one in particular.
I think Barris was on him at the time.
Yes, that one didn't look good. But I wouldn't say he did it overall for the day. I think that one in particular stood out. But I think I can't think of any other one that really stood out like that.
I think they're the ones. I think when he's coming up to the ball and the ball's maybe not right out in front of him and he's got a proper bit, they're the ones where he's not happy with what might be coming from behind him, in my opinion. When he's moving laterally, or when the ball's right out nicely out in front, or when he's kind of got a good position and a good run and jump at the ball, he's fine. But when his back's exposed and he's got to sort of stop and prop a little bit because the ball might be coming a little bit higher than what he'd like, they're the ones he doesn't like. He tends to keep running and go up with the one hand or just be out of position.
Yeah, I don't think anybody loves a hospital ball, but
I'm not talking about hospital balls, Mackie. You know what it's like. You're coming up to a ball, and it just holds up in the breeze, or it's a little bit higher than you'd like, and instead of being able to run full pace onto it, you have to stop and set yourself, and then jump. They're the ones that he struggles with, in my opinion.
Yeah. Look, he's still doing his trade, and I think he was a bit hit and miss on the weekend, and there were a couple of good ones he took as well. So I think he took 7 marks for the game, something like that. So he wasn't totally hopeless, but there were a couple where...
Didn't say it was hopeless, Macca. Didn't say it was hopeless.
No, but there were a couple there that he should have taken and didn't. But it was a very windy day too for him, which also does make it harder the higher the ball.
Litany of excuses for what you know as well as I do is a trait of a player who is worried about what's coming behind him, Macca. Now, come on. Toughen up.
I'm not saying that there was one real bad one that really did stand out. I agree with that.
Yeah.
I haven't, but I'm not saying that that's a standard part of his game. That's what I'm saying. There are occasions when he does it, but it's not. I wouldn't say that it's standard.
I think it's standard in those circumstances. But anyway, let's not labour the point. I thought he did all right. Hopefully he doesn't have too much trouble getting back on the park, but it is a bit of a shame because you would have liked to have seen him hit the ground running in round one. So opens up a few opportunities, none more so than for Mr. Fogarty, who I haven't been impressed with this off-season, Mac.
Well, I thought he played a stinker on the weekend, to be honest. A real stinker. I mean, what do you get, 10 possessions, something like that? But they were nothing possessions. That's not how Fogarty was playing last year, and he needs more involvement. And I don't think he worked hard enough. That's my honest impression. That when you're a forward, you have to work. Sometimes you really do have to work very hard to get yourself into the game. And like Tex, it's very smart. He's good at it and does it. And even when he's pretty well covered by a player, you can always count on Tex. He'll do something. But Fogarty, unfortunately, I don't know. He's got that same mental toughness as that Walker's got. That Walker knows if he keeps going, he'll eventually do something good. Fog at times looks like he's not even really trying 100%. And I thought he looked lazy, put it that way.
I'm a bit concerned, Mac. We've been saying the same things about Darcy now for a number of seasons. And he gives you a couple of games, you think, oh, he's finally clicked. And he had a little stretch last year where you thought, oh, he's finally clicked. And then he reverts back to that Loper. Again, lacks that assertive edge on the field, if you ask me. And it exposes our forward line when we've got someone like Riley Thilthorpe go down, because Darcy really has to step up. I'm starting to wonder, Mac, what is the role that the club are trying to get Darcy to play? Is he a high lead up forward? Is he a come from the square type? What is he? Because him and Tex are so similar in the way that they play. You would imagine that Tex is taking all the prime spots just because he's Tex. Maybe just Darcy just can't fit into that forward line with Tex there. I mean, we've said it before.
Well, it's a very fair comment too, because Tex is such quality and has been quality for such a long time. It would be a natural reaction by the players to look for Tex, and Tex is smart too. He's definitely smarter than Fogg, so he's more likely to be in the better position as well. So I think it's a very valid point you made. So, but that means that Fogg's just got to work a little bit harder and think about his game a little bit harder as well. What can I do to present myself so that I am the one that they're going to kick the ball to?
Yeah, I think Jad on the chat makes a really good point. He says that Fogg gets annoyed when things aren't going his way and then he drops his bundle. I think there is a bit of that, but look, to me that's coaching. You've got a certain amount of players up forward and they've all got to work cohesively and work together. And to me that's coaching. And, I really want to look for Tex to get around Darcy, and of course you don't know what goes on at training and all the rest of it. But I want to see Tex and Darcy work in tandem, because the two of them together as a 1-2 punch with very similar games, and being able to have one running up and one sitting back and vice versa, and providing different looks, it could be a major benefit for us up forward. But they just don't seem to be working cohesively at the moment, in my opinion.
Yeah, look, it's early days, but I have to agree with you. You're right so far. With the two games we've played so far, I have to agree that is the case. I just hope that when the real games start, that Fog gets his engine going, and that he really, just tries a lot harder and works out where to be. And he's probably going to have to, because of the fact that we're not going to have Philthorpe there. I don't know who's going to be there. We'll discuss that later, but it's not going to be the same structure as before. So he'll have the opportunity, I think.
So a couple of other fringe players, Lockie Scholl continued to be Lockie Scholl, and he showed good form last pre-season as well, and got the agate a bit. I don't want to get too much into our first 22, but he hasn't done a lot wrong, Lockie Scholl.
No, he's got a wing sewn up. His ball getting is excellent. He's really good at getting the ball. As we know, he's not a really physical player, but yeah, somebody said in the chat he was the cleanest by foot on Saturday. I wouldn't argue with that. His disposal is excellent.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. Lockie Murphy, didn't see a lot of him, Mac.
I thought, he was useful. He played a Murphy type game, and I'll tell you what, it certainly doesn't lack courage for the guy his size. I know he's a player that sort of divides opinion. Some people don't like him, in the sense don't think he's worth being in the side. Others say he's got good value. So I think the club like him, though, in terms of they think he does add value. I can say that one thing for certain: he doesn't squib it, even for his size. He goes in hard, really hard for the ball, and he can earn a hard ball, so or prevent the ball from leaving the area. So I think he's a starter, but we'll talk about that later.
Yep. Ned McHenry got a bit of a run and got a bit of it.
Yeah. I liked his game last week, but I thought he was a bit like a giddy goat running around a little bit.
Well, that's what you get from Neddy.
Yeah, he just wasn't definitive enough most of the times when he had the ball. Did a couple of nice things, but yeah, he's not a killer player, and he's not a player that you would say is a must-have in the side. I mean, he's worth playing if you're down, you got players out of the team, and you're short, but I don't think he's a starting 22 player for me, 23 player.
And what do you think of Benny Keys' game?
Useful. He's mostly up forward, but he had a couple of goes of. It looked like he was. Well, probably wasn't, but he was up on the wing, and even sometimes a couple of times into the back lines as well. So he did roam around a lot, and I think that's one of the advantages of him as well. I don't think he's one of those forwards that wait for the ball to come to him. I think he goes looking for it quite a bit. So
I think he's got I think he's got a bit of a license, to be honest with you.
I'm sure he has, because he doesn't play as a flanker. He just sort of plays it all over the place. And look, I think that's a good thing, because it disrupts their backline as well.
Yeah, that's true. He's still a bit untidy at times, but again, another player that give you 110% every week. So you can't really knock him. I guess in terms of with those players that we just discussed, Murphy and McHenry, I think the questions are, who would you have in to replace them if you wanted to replace them? And I think this is where I have a little bit of concern about our season. There's not too many players knocking on the door, Macca, at this early stage.
No, I don't think there's anybody in at this very stage that's saying, "Oh, I want that spot." But there are 2 or 3 players that are in the team who might be sort of demanding that spot as the season develops. So there are. I suppose the midfielders they are going to find it tough, because there's so much, and that it's not their fault either, because some of them I think might do all right if they got to go, but so it's around the ground that we're going to struggle more for a decent replacement. I think the midfielders in the twos are not too bad, actually, and I think Young Edwards, he's not ready yet, but he'll be pushing in next year.
Do you know, I would... Here's my take on Ned McHenry. I would like to see Zach Taylor take Ned's spot. Because I know we've got Zach as a midfielder, but I just feel like he's got the aggression of McHenry with a little bit more skill and polish.
Yes. Yeah, well, he certainly has got more skill and polish.
And this is now his, third season?
Yeah,
he was recruited in the Saligo year. So that's his third season. And, you know, he had caught a bit of an injury when he was going really well in the twos last year. I'd like to see them give him a run in the McHenry slot. I think we need to see what Zach can bring at AFL level. He's a small player, but, you know, we don't mind them. We got plenty of them. So that's not a big deal. But I just like him a little bit more. He's just got a little bit more footballer about him than Ned, in my opinion.
Well, I think the only way you'll ever know that is if you try him. But at the moment, I think you're right that, you know, there's no spots at the moment for players like him at the moment. You know, you get injuries.
Well, There's the Ned McHenry spot.
Yeah, but I don't think he's not in my 23 anyhow.
The other one is Nankervis. I think we've got to find a way to get that lad in the side, in my opinion.
I agree. He look, the games he played at the end of last year were very good. I think he showed that he is definitely up to AFL standard, and he's definitely a player. I think the more you play him, the better he'll get as well. I think he's got ability.
I think he's just a natural footballer. You know, he's just and he came from a long way back. You know, he wasn't. You know, he came into football late, if I recall, or something. You know, he sort of came out of the wilderness somewhere, and he just looks like a natural player. Is his spot the Brodie Smith spot, Macca? Well,
at the moment, the way Smith played so far in the pre-season, he wouldn't have to play too well to take his spot. I think long term he'll probably get Smith's spot. But as Switzerland being in the leadership group, I think he'll be playing there all year, and Nankervis is probably going to have to wait for injury or opportunity as it comes.
Yeah, I haven't. I mean, Brodie Smith's just been Brodie Smith during the pre-season, and for these senior players like Tex and Brodie and all the rest of it, you know, pre-season is a bit of a just get through it sort of thing. So I'm not sort of, you know, hanging too much on Brodie at the moment because he is probably managing himself. But you know, harking back to what we were getting out of him last season, particularly there was a stretch there where he was just turning the ball over by foot consistently, and you know, you never question his effort, but his pace seemed to be down a little bit. You know, he's got skills that Nankervis doesn't have, but Nankervis has got skills that I don't think Brodie has either. We would lose a little bit in terms of rebound off halfback, I think, with not having Brodie there. But by the same token, as we know, a lot of that rebound seems to come back over our head, you know, with Brodie's less than perfect foot skills.
Well, you know, the 50, 60 metre bomb, you know, and yeah, it's just a 50-50 ball, and if they get hold of it, they come flying back down the centre. So, the danger in playing Smith on the halfback flank, as we found, that is that like he's kicking to just over the centre line and in between there and the 50s. And if it doesn't go to the opposite, if it goes to the opposition, which it does quite a lot, then it rebounds very quickly. That's why I think one of the reasons why they stuck him on a wing last year, because of the fact that when he does a 50-60 metre, at least it's in our forward 50.
Well, I was going to say to you, when was the last, and I know structures might change and the game changes and all the rest of it, but when was the last time you saw Brodie Smith stream forward from behind centre and kick one of those long goals? It's been a while.
Yeah, Yeah, well, he's definitely coming towards the end of his career.
We used to get that out of seed as well, and I I mean, I don't want to write a bloke's career off, but I think Brodie needs to probably be pretty sharp in the first month, or otherwise Nankervis will be waiting in the wings, I think. And look, to be honest with you, Macca, I don't know whether halfback is necessarily Nankervis' spot. I don't know whether he's necessarily got the pace for a wing, but I could almost see him as a high half forward.
Yeah, look, I think he can play on wing. I think he's got reasonably good pace, good enough to play on the wing. J-Mac makes a comment about Smith that he loves the handoff goals. Well, J-Mac, you're right. He loves getting the ball to have a shot at goal, a handoff, but he usually kicks a bloody point with it. That's the only problem.
Yeah, I mean, he's always been that sort of player, but we also used to get some running goals from him, similarly to Sloane years ago when Sloane was playing on a wing. We get those big runs down the outside and nice long 50-metre goal. We haven't had that from Brodie for a long time. Nankervis is a very interesting player. It'll be interesting to see where they play him in the twos, because that might give us some indication of what they might think about him. I think he'll do a more than adequate job at halfback. I just don't know whether that's the most effective place for him, to be honest. Dowling is another one, Mac, that I think is probably not far away from being given a crack.
He played very well last week, Billy Dowling, when he got his opportunity. He has got ability, Billy Dowling, and I'm sure he'll get a league game one day. But the problem is, he's competing with a lot of people for the same position, and that's the problem. But I do like Dowling. I think he has got the ability to play at the level, but it's whether he's ever going to get the proper opportunity.
I think he needs a bit more upper body strength, Mac. Certainly to play midfield. He's got Harry Schomburg around him. He's got Zach Taylor around him. He's now got Edwards around him as well. So there's a bit of competition, and there's a few blokes jostling for their careers at the moment. And I think blokes like Dowling, as good as he is, may just find themselves getting shuffled out. Don't forget, we've got a couple of players lined up for next season, Tyler Wells, etc. You can't keep these players on your list forever. And
no, I agree.
And you'd probably think that Dowling and a couple of those like Bond, etc., need to really step up their game, similarly to how we saw Chase Jones step up his game in the twos to get selected. I think we need to see Dowling and Zach Taylor and those blokes and Bond and Nankervis really start to take the SANFL team by the scruff of the neck, and make their case, I think.
Yeah, well, look, you got Dan Curtin as well, who eventually will be probably looking for a spot in the midfield as well. Probably.
I don't think it'll be midfield to start off with, Macca.
No, long term, but he'll probably start in the defence. But I'm sure he's going to end up as a midfielder in the long run. But just to make it very, very hard.
I'm not that sure.
Well, time will tell.
Yeah, I mean, look, the question you've got to ask is, do you want him in the midfield? Look, that's a question for another time, because he's a long way off that. He's got to make the side first and foremost. He's got a little knee niggle as well that he needs to work through. Let's just get him in the team, and get him settled first before we start pushing him into the mids.
Absolutely.
So yeah, I think the only question I've got probably, and I don't want to get into our first round team too much, Mac, because I'd like us to spend a bit of time on that next week. But I'm interested in your thoughts on who comes in for Big Riley, because he's a definite non-starter for round one. Are you going to go the tried and true Big Easy, or are you going to go with Burjo?
Well, It's an interesting question, isn't it? Because,
I don't think it's a question.
well, I would actually, well, you'd say Himmelberg should have the advantage, but if you go by his preseason game, admittedly he's playing in the back line. Look, personally, I would if it's out of those two, if that's the way they're going to structure, and I'm not saying they're going to structure that way, but if they do, I'd go for Burgess.
Yeah, I'm a Burgess. A few people in the chat saying Gallant. If we pick Gallant, we don't have a second ruck. And I know it's not the be-all and end-all, but I think O'Brien does need a chop out. So I would be giving Burgess a run. I like the way he marks the ball. I like the way he attacks the ball in the air. To me, Macca, I've been an Elliot Himmelberg backer for a long time, but I've just been so disappointed over the last 2 years that he just hasn't been able to take his intensity up a level, because I think he's actually, for a big fella, he's got a lot of good traits. He's got good skill. I think he's got a really good football brain. He's quite calm with ball in hand, but he just lacks that intensity, doesn't he? And I think in today's game, in the modern game, you have to be 100% intense. I don't even know whether it's laziness. I think it's intensity, to be honest with you.
He's certainly not intense enough. I agree with that. And no, I don't think he's lazy. I don't think he's just got it in him to be motivated at all costs type of thing. Yeah, he just looked. They call him the Big Easy. Is that right?
Yeah, I don't, and like some people are just like that, right? I don't think it's because he's not trying. I don't think it's because in his head he can't be bothered or any of that sort of rubbish. But some people are just more intense than others.
Yeah,
and
Barty Magic stole my word. I was going to say laconic. He's a laconic type player.
Yeah, well, that's the word we used last week. And he is that type of player. And some players can get away with it. D. Jarman could get away with being a laconic player. D. Jarman did everything at half speed to everyone else because he saw the game so well.
Yeah.
Big Elliot, he's got everything going for him except for that. Everything going, and I'm really disappointed for him because I think this might be his last season with us, and it's a shame.
Yeah, I was quite surprised that we didn't trade him. I really was.
Yeah, well, I mean, with Burgess coming in, you'd sort of thought maybe you might, but maybe we were just a little bit concerned, or maybe there was no reason to drop him off under the, like, given what else we had. But yeah, I think they're obviously trying him down back. I don't think he has the intensity to be a defender, and maybe that's why they kept him on, because of Nick Murray, right?
I think that's probably the only reason. That could be the only reason, because there's no other logic for it.
Yeah. So, yeah, Burgess for mine. I don't think they'll look at Kieran Strawn. I think he does well when he comes into the ones, but I don't think he's the type of player that they'd be looking for to replace Riley Thilthorpe. So I think it'll be Burgess that'll come in against his ex-Gold Coast, isn't he? So it'll be against his old club, right?
That's where he came from. We played 25 players on the weekend. It goes back to 23, so there'll be two more drop out, and that's in plus Thilthorpe going out.
Well, one will be Riley, the other one will be McHenry, you'd say.
Well, Riley, no, there's got to be. It'll be Hamill. Hamill will go out.
Oh, sorry, and Hamill. Yeah. McHenry and Hamill, they'll replace Thilthorpe, obviously.
And Thilthorpe is an extra one going out, so that's the one to get replaced. And and we think Burgess. But I also would like to see Keane come in. I have great raps on Keane. I really think he is are going to be a very, very good player down back. I thought when he took over last year, he was very good. And to me, I prefer him there rather than Borlase.
Oh, well, yeah, no question about that, Macca. But I don't know whether Keeney's right yet. Did he get a crack in the jaw eventually, or was it just concussion?
Just concussion.
Yeah, so if he's right to go, and there's no reason to think he won't, then he would come in for Borlase, you would think.
I hope so, because Borlase's disposal was horrible in the early parts of the game. I mean, he didn't go badly. He didn't go badly, but he is, to me, the weak link down back. He's the one that, if I was an opposition coach, he'd be the one I'd be making sure I had somebody put on him that he couldn't handle. Because
yeah, you'd try and funnel through Borlase's opponent, wouldn't you? He's just a good, honest player. He's probably a bit of a tweener. He lacks pace. Tries very hard. Excellent SANFL player. Would he get on another list? I'm not sure whether he would. Maybe his insurance, but I don't think he'll ever be a best 22 player at AFL level.
The opportunity was there because we delisted him, and then we took him up in the rookie draft. So, I mean, he could have been grabbed by Port Adelaide if they wanted him.
That's right.
Nobody wanted him.
So look, I don't think he's a bad player. He's an excellent, he was an excellent player at Sturton. I was glad that we picked him up when we did, but he just hasn't come on. He's probably not the right size for the type of player that he is, and seems to lack endurance as well, which is interesting because he's built like a brick shithouse. But so probably I don't even think he's fringe. I think his insurance is the type of guy that you keep on your list for events such as Keane getting injured, in my opinion.
Exactly.
And I think, Keane coming in, and you've got Geordie Butts now back in as well. I think it makes our defence a little bit better in terms of our matchups.
Yeah, you've still got Worrell, you've still got Michael Lanny as well. So it does make the defence look pretty strong.
Yeah, and, looking crystal balling a little bit, but it'll be interesting to see, because we obviously played with the Butts-Murray combination predominantly last year when they were both fit, and Keane coming in to cover that. When Nick ends up being fit again, it'll be interesting to see what they do there.
Yeah, well, we shall see.
Might be one too many. Anyway, look...
it could be, exactly. It could be.
So I'll throw open the chat if anyone wants to have something to say, because I don't think there's too much else that we can talk about, Mac.
I'll throw a couple at you. What do you think of Pedlar's game?
Quiet-ish. I think, a little bit of reconfiguration through the middle with Sam Berry having, what do you have, about 12 or 13 10-abouts attendances. So I think that affected Luke's ability to get into the game.
It did.
But I think he's just a bloody gun as far as I'm concerned. I'm a massive fan, so not in any danger, and I'm not worried about his form or anything like that. He played quite well the previous week.
Yeah, the interesting thing, as you said, Berry was basically taking his opportunity into go in the middle. I saw him in the middle probably once or twice. I can't remember seeing him in there a lot. So basically, he was on a half forward flank, and that can be starvation. Playing on a half forward flank. So
that's right. Yeah,
he did some. Look, he did some few nice things, and I'm sure he's going to be a very good player for us all year. But it was just one of those games that he didn't actually get quite into it, and he had moments, but that was it.
Agreed. Now we've got Arab Crow joining us, Mac, and we know that Arab always brings some sense and rationality to proceedings. How you going, mate?
Not always.
Arab, how you going, mate?
Good. How you guys going? It's good to have the cast back. It's actually quite refreshing. You know what I mean? Like hearing you guys talk and all that. So I've been looking forward to it.
Thanks very much, mate.
Very kind of you, mate.
Thank you. I'm just here to ask you a question. Do you see, for me personally, I'm worried about the game plan. It just feels like it's very one-dimensional, and that hasn't really changed. Like I feel like we can't really alter the way we play that much. I know it was against West Coast, but even then they should have tried different things in the way we play, different structures. The only thing that was like completely different was the midfield and the rotations we had in there. It just seemed a bit more dynamic, but there wasn't really much like change to the forward line or the back line structure or how we defend. It just felt same. So I'm just wondering what you guys thought of that.
Mate?
Well, he's right. He is right in the sense that we certainly mixed it up in the midfield because when we look at the number of players we ran through, there would have been 6 or 7 players at least in the end. So you're right. We gave the midfield a good workout. Half forward, well, as I say, Pedler was stuck there for quite a lot of the game, and Keys, he plays his role, which is to play everywhere on from the half forward flank. So that didn't change either. So you're quite right. There was nothing different up forward, and down back there was nothing special down back either. So you are right. But then again, if you're the coach and you think you've got something pretty well right, I don't think you mess around with it in the last practice game before the first game of the year. That's not the time to mess around and to do trials. I think you do them privately in your training sessions. You might do it in pre-season trial, but not this last one. This wasn't the game to do things that very, very differently.
Mm. Well,
I think our transition has improved a little bit. Richmond Oval's a pretty small ground. It looked pretty congested, if you ask me. It's hard to try too much because it's just not a ground that you've got the space to be creative. It's a fairly tight sort of a game there. I see us trying to change lanes. I see us kicking it into the corridor a bit, which I like. At this stage, I don't really think it's a concern. I'll be interested to see what sort of style we play come round 1, because I think a lot of the game plan stuff is probably done these days behind closed doors in match sim, mate.
Yeah, I think so. Particularly if you're going to do something that's slightly different.
And one more thing is, speaking of Fogarty, I heard you guys earlier. I just want to add one more thing is, I think the problem with him is that we are trying to play him as a half forward, and while he does not have the body build for it. Like, he's just that run up, market, kick it kind of player. We can't expect him to be like a Tex where he will get like 10 disposals, 15 disposals. I think he's just one of those players where like on average he would kick like your 1 or 2 goals, 3 goals, and that's it. And unfortunately, that's just the kind of player he is. Like, yeah, I don't know about you guys, but even when I see him run, he's just like runs like a fat person, to be honest with you. Just like wobbling all over the place, you know?
No, I disagree with that. I think when he does lead up Arab, he is quite good as a connector, playing high. I think half the time his problems are more when he is deep in the forward line, because I don't think he's got the space to run into, because generally that's where Tex is running.
Yeah, I don't know. That's my opinion. I don't know. Yeah, sorry.
No, go on, mate.
I was going to say that partly is what Arab is saying is right, but the way it is structured is that you've got the tall, like Phil Thorpe, hanging around the square, is supposed to take the marks, like anything like the contested high ball. and Fogarty if that opportunity presents itself. But if Fogarty wants to get a lot of the ball, he actually has to make a lead that's even better than what Tex is offering. I mean, and that will happen when it should happen. I mean, Tex can't be in the right spot every time. There's many a time when the ball's coming in from different angles where if Fogarty got on his bike and made the lead, they can give the ball to him. And that did happen a couple of times. I can remember one very nice lead he made. But I don't think he made enough leads overall. And it's work rate. It just comes back to what we were saying before about work rate. He's a lazy player, and I think he let himself down by not working hard enough.
Yeah.
Good to hear your voice as always, Arab.
Thank you, guys.
Nice to have you back, mate. Anyone else want to have a chat? You've got about 5 minutes if you've got something to say. If you aren't on our Discord and you're thinking, how the hell did that guy just get onto the bloody podcast? Links are in all our descriptions for our Discord channel. It's an excellent place to share your opinions, both on game day, during the live stream, and also during the week. We have some pretty lively chat as the season goes on, so get around it. The link's in the description or on all our social profiles. So come in and then you can join the live show chat and come on and do what Arab just did and talk bloody sense, because God knows, Macca, sometimes we struggle. Yeah, we do at times. I'm looking at Vardy Magic. When are you coming on, Vardy? No, he won't. He just won't do it. Well, he should. I mean, he's protecting. I actually think he's the. I think he's actually the Prime Minister of Australia, because he's got this bloody identity that he wants to check, that he wants to protect, and I'm not going to push him anymore because that's his prerogative. Well, I'm not asking him to bear his bum on TV or something like that. I'm just asking the guy to come and talk. He must have a distinctive voice. Maybe it's Graham Corns. Maybe, Vardy, don't talk like this in a high voice or something. Yeah, well, see, Vardy, now you can actually, just chuck your voice through an AI generator, and then you can be anyone you want to be. You could talk like Albo, mate. You could talk like Albo. No, look, we like having Vardy in the chat, because the thing about having Vardy in the chat is that he just comes up with the right stat at the right time, Mac. He does. And you can just have an eye on the chat, and you can, oh, thanks, Vardy. And then it makes us look smart, because Vardy's given us, he's like, in the cricket commentary where you got the guy in the background just feeding all the stats to the commentators to make them look smart. That's Vardy to us, and we really appreciate him here. Yeah, I see a lot of his stuff. So we've got the week off next week, which is good. There is a family day. Now, when's the family day? Can someone tell me? I can't look it up. I think there's a family day coming up, maybe on the next weekend, I think. Wasn't it? Was that yesterday, was it? Well, I missed that, didn't I? It was, and it was an excellent idea too, because they encouraged kids to come along, and they also got kids to present jumpers and all that sort of stuff. So fantastic. Actually, it incorporated a lot of the ideas that I actually put in my suggestion to them, which won me a Crows signed Guernsey, mate. So I was very pleased with that. How many things do you not win? Is your house just adorned with Sammy's freaking seafood vouchers that you haven't had a chance to use yet, and signed Guernseys, and I've got 5 seriously, vouchers. Mate. I've got 5 vouchers to use at the moment. Oh, mate, it's hilarious. You just win everything, and it's as if you talk sense. I can't work it out. Yeah, but don't forget, I'm talking to Rowie. Yeah, well, that's true. That's true. Look, all right, mate, we might leave it, I think, because we've had a good discussion, and we've got the week's break coming up, and then, of course, we're into, well, how stupid is this? We're not actually into round 1. We're into round 0, because we're playing one of these silly first week games that I can't understand why they're doing it.
I think it's a one. Look, I can understand why they're doing it, though, because they're trying to have a crack at the. While there's an opportunity to have a crack at the NFL people up there in Sydney and Queensland, but to me, I just think it's bloody stupid to have an opening round and then a round one. It's just you have either look. They could have had those games and had the other games down in Melbourne or Adelaide or wherever. I think it's bloody stupid.
Yeah, it's a bit weird, but that's our new operator. What is she? Football operations. The football operations person.
Oh, okay. Yep. I know who you mean.
And obviously Andy Dillon as well. Yeah. By the way, what did you think? What do you think of the new ruck interpretation, the blocking interpretation?
It suits somebody like Riley O'Brien, who's physically strong, who can't get off the ground very high. So it's going to work for him. It's not going to work too well for some of the thinner, less stronger ones. So I don't actually think it's right, to be honest. I think, again, it's probably there to prevent body clashes and injuries. But to me, it doesn't make sense that you can actually just push somebody away and then win in a ruck contest. Well, one thing you have to have your eyes on the ball when you do it. That's the one thing. Yeah,
so it doesn't allow you just to take the space away from another person with your hands. And to be honest with you, I'm not disappointed about the knee rule, because I think there's just it's too much injury associated with that, like clash of knees or whatever. So I'm not disappointed about that. I just think they should have gone the whole hog and not allowed the hands as well. I think it should be a straight up run and jump, without any contact between the ruckman. That's what we had the centre line in the circle for, remember? So that the ruckman didn't interact, they just ran at the ball, and they seem to have lost sight of that.
Totally. I mean, I remember when they first put that line in, players would be going on all different angles trying to work out how they could get an advantage. But it certainly stopped the front-on clashes, because players were coming from sides and all that type of thing. But you're quite right, though. The clashing of need for ruckman is bloody horrific, in the sense that if they can actually lose, be put out of the game altogether if they get hit in the wrong spot. So I think it's a good thing to remove that. But it does seem strange that you could actually push somebody away just to get the ball like that. But
we'll see how it pans out. It may well it'll be reinterpreted 17 times before the end of the season.
Yeah, it'll work well for O'Brien. No doubt about that. It'll work well for him.
Yeah, now all he's got to do is tap at the right spots.
Oh, that's another thing.
And last thing, a couple of people on the chat talking about the bump. Who was it? Webster. Did you see that, mate?
Oh, yeah. Look, it is actually worse than Sam Powell-Pepper's. It's the guy's actually kicked the ball, and then he's taken off and into his head. I mean, he's actually disposed of the ball before he's launched.
Yeah.
And I think he can't get away with 4. He's got to be 5 or 6. I think it'll be 6.
What possesses a player to do that, Mac? I mean, what possesses a player? I mean, Powell-Pepper's. I had this discussion with Cam, my eldest, today, and he reckons it was a bit overblown, the Powell-Pepper one. But you can't argue about this one. This one was just a dead set snipe, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, well, look, the Powell-Pepper one, you can't argue that one either, because if you do play frame by frame, you can see him lean his shoulder into his head, but that's over in history. That's 4 weeks. This one's going to be worse than that, because it's not even really in play. The ball has gone, and he's launched and smashed, and he smashed him in the head. Just smashed him in the head. He's jumped up to hit him in the head.
I just don't understand why a player does that. What possesses a player in the modern age modern game of footy, what possesses a play? I can see how Power Pepper gets himself into a situation and he decides, well, I'm going to bump him. Like, wrong decision, but I can see how that happens, right? But that one today, I don't. That one, sorry, the Webster one, that is just an utter snipe as far as I'm concerned.
Yes, plain filth, and I don't think they'll be going by any guidelines. They'll be just looking at it as an incident, and the look of the incident and the result of the incident and what it means for the look of the game. And I think he's going to really get a big one. I mean, I think he's got to get a minimum of 6, but it wouldn't surprise me even if they went 8. But, it's certainly got to go at least 6, I think.
Well, I think they were relatively strong with Power Pepper. I was happy that they gave 4, even though I thought it could have gone more. But 4 sends a message, like, we're not going to put up with this shit. But this one, if you're giving Power Pepper 4, you've got to give Webster 8, in my view. Because I think it was double, like, in terms of, flouting the rules and all the rest of it, it was double strength as far as I'm concerned. So should get double the penalty. No questions asked, no ifs, buts. And if I was St Kilda, I wouldn't be appealing it either. I'd be making the player. Because, see, this is what these clubs have got to realise, that if they can get around their player and support him, absolutely. But if they condone that sort of stuff, or if they can try to defend that sort of stuff at the tribunal, what they're basically saying to their players is that, we're giving you a certain amount of licence. And that's going to come back. One day, someone from St Kilda is going to get hit like that. If we're going to stamp out this stuff, I think not only is it the tribunal's responsibility, but it's also the club's responsibility, Macca.
100% agree with that. 100%, because it hurts the team in the sense that player is going to be he's going to be gone for 6 to 8 games, and he at least played a relatively important part in their game, and now that means that they're going to put a lesser player in his role. So it does hurt the team.
So do the clubs get a bit of a let-off because the employer is essentially the AFL here? Because, like, I've been thinking about this a bit over the last 24 hours, and to my mind, the club, as I said, the clubs try. Like, I understand you go to a judicial system like the tribunal, you're putting a case to get the least amount of sanction, right? I get that. I can understand that. That's how the legal process works in any situation. But to me, the clubs aren't doing anything to assist in the avoidance of head-high contact, in my opinion. I think it's all the AFL holds all the liability because contractually they're the employer. They're the ones that have got to provide the safe workplace, etc., etc., etc. And, I do think that these players need to accept a certain amount of risk inherent with playing a contact sport. But stuff like what Webster did, I want St Kilda to come out and make a statement to say that what he did was unacceptable. I don't want them to defend. I don't want them to defend him because there's no defence to what Webster did. There's no defence. And I would prefer that St Kilda came out and made a statement.
Yeah, look, I totally agree with you. There is no defence. There's none whatsoever. So, what do you think the club should come out and say, that he has let himself and the club down with his actions?
I just think that the club should say we don't condone that kind of action on the football field. We don't want that happening to one of our players, and we don't want it to happen to any of our players on any of the players on the field. Every club, I think, has got a past player that's probably suffering as a consequence of multiple concussions. And it's only been recently that we've started to understand the repercussions. I mean, look at poor Paul Seedsman. We had Brent Riley as well. We've had players, Sam... was it Sam Shaw? Also?
Yeah. Yeah.
We've had a few, and every club's had a few, right? But Angus Brayshaw had his career cut short, and whilst I don't think that was Braden Maynard's fault, you know, Brayshaw's come up through a system and he's got a lot of concussions that have led to that relatively minor incident with Brayshaw, with Maynard being the end of his career. If the clubs don't start taking responsibility, then how can they look at their past players, some of whom are going to suffer from CTE, some of whom are going to suffer from ongoing consequences of concussion? How can they look those past players in the face and saying, we're doing everything we can to protect you and support you?
Everything
they
you say,
can they?
No, everything you say is 100% right. But if I had a football club, you know, if I was the boss of the football club, I would say that that we're disappointed with his action, and he will obviously pay the price for that. And however, we will support him, and in the sense of his own welfare, and also education to be sure that he doesn't repeat that type of action. I think
Mate, that's the wokest thing I've ever heard you say.
I know it's puffy, but what I'm saying is you've got to say something that's...
Puffy?
Well,
what the hell is puffy?
Well, it means all soft, you know, sort of thing. But,
no, it doesn't. It's not a word we use, Macca. Take that back.
All right, I can
take that back. We don't use that word. It's not appropriate.
Okay, I've taken it back 3 times now, so I can't take it back again.
One more for good luck.
Okay, I'll take it back for the 4th bloody time. It's, what can I say? It's weak as dishwater. It's weak as dishwater. I just
Correct.
think the club has to say, even though it's weak as dishwater, they've got to say something that actually says the bloke did wrong, but we'll support him to the extent that yes, he has to pay the price, but we'll help educate him to do the right thing, type of thing. You've got to say something like that.
Why?
Well, otherwise it means that, like, a player would feel like, I know he's done wrong, but he's been playing in their Guernsey for them, and the player would feel like they've just grabbed him and just thrown him out and said, you know, just chucked him out. I just think you just can't do that thing.
I think there are certain times when a person has to take responsibility for their own actions, and they can't expect for a club to just wrap their arms around them just because they're wearing the Guernsey, right? Because when they wear the Guernsey, there's a certain level of behaviour, I guess, that is expected, right? And I know that footy's a contact sport, and I'm all about the contact. I love the contact. The game has been far too sanitised. But when I see sniping like that, that was a premeditated action that has been out of the game for as long as I can remember. And you've got a bloke that has just made a decision in a pre-season game to take a bloke out like that. And let's face it, that's what he did. He took the bloke out, Macca.
Oh, he did.
One of the most defenceless times as a footballer that you have is directly after you've kicked the ball. You're completely open, right? You're completely open. It was probably one of the things against Maynard in that Brayshaw thing, although there were other things, but whatever. I think there comes a point where a player has to take responsibility for his own actions, and I think the club needs to be strong enough to say, no, we don't condone that. Like, it's the same as if someone gets done taking performance-enhancing drugs. What are you going to say? Oh, you know, he did the wrong thing, but we're going to support him. Well, why should you support him? The guy intentionally made a decision that was in direct contravention of not only club policy and football rules, but also another bloke's safety.
Yeah,
they've all got an obligation to each other on the field, and that guy took advantage of a bloke being vulnerable and took him out.
I agree 100%. But Port Adelaide supported Sam Powell-Pepper.
Yeah, but I think there's a clear difference between what Powell-Pepper did, and what Webster did. Powell-Pepper he was in the play, and he made a poor decision, right? This one, like you said, the ball had gone. The ball had gone, right? And Webster has taken him out.
Oh, he's got no defence whatsoever. I agree.
So I think there is, like, you know, Port didn't come out and say we support Powell-Pepper. They just defended him at the tribunal, right? But they didn't appeal the 4 games and all the rest of it, so they accept it. I would have, you know, I think all I'm saying is when you've got to play, like the Brayshaw thing is a big deal as far as I'm concerned, and we've had the lad from Sydney as well, who had to retire early after multiple concussions, and watching him struggle whenever he got an innocuous hit. Like Tom Lynch is another one. I remember after his concussion, every time he got bumped, he'd look rattled. You know, Will Hamill's another. We've got another situation with him. We've got Paul Seedsman, you know. Yeah. I think the time has come, if we are dead set serious about a player's duty of care, there's always going to be accidental and incidental head knocks, Macca. Yep. There's always going to be that, and I don't want to sanitise the game to the extent that we're playing touch football. And I think a bloke that signs up to play Aussie rules at any level accepts a certain amount of risk. What I don't think that person accepts is being shirt-fronted when he's completely open, like what happened on the weekend.
Oh, that should never happen to a player. It should not happen. 100%.
Things like what Powell-Pepper did, I think that's within the boundaries of what can happen, an acceptable risk. Powell-Pepper made a bad decision.
You're being kind.
He made a bad decision. I'm being a little bit kind to him, but I think Powell-Pepper's was still in play, so it was more of a split-second decision, and he made the wrong one, right? Made the wrong one. It's the same thing as the sling tackle. Taking the sling tackle out of the game has taken time because it's a natural instinct for a bloke to tackle a bloke to the ground. But, you know, in order to avoid that head-on ground contact, we've got to take it out. Sam Berry's going to have to be really careful with the way he tackles. I've seen him bring a couple of blokes down and be quite lucky that they haven't hit their heads, because otherwise he'll do matches. I'm talking about I'm talking about the intentional snipe, Macca. The intentional snipe, the absolute unnecessary, totally avoidable, intentional snipe.
Look, he's got no excuses in the world, and I know that he will argue that he'd made up his mind to launch into him before, he had the ball, and the time lag was very short, etc., etc. But having said that, he shouldn't have been doing, even if the guy had the ball, he shouldn't have been doing what he did.
He left the ground, didn't he?
He left the ground. He left into the ground because his shoulder belted the guy in the head. So
how long has leaving the ground to bump been like a no-no in Aussie rules football? Forever. So he can't even argue that, because the bump itself was illegal. Take the timing out of the equation. The bump itself was illegal. He left the ground, leapt into him, right? So it was illegal. And then you bring the timing into it, and it's just I'm sorry, but it's unforgivable. Unforgivable. You know, and one of these days, Macca, if we're not careful, and it shocks me that it hasn't happened already, but one of these days a bloke is going to cop an elbow to the head and he's not going to get up, and we're going to have a Phil Hughes situation.
I know. That is the danger. That is the danger.
You know, 100%. And I think it is inherent not only on the AFL but also on the clubs to draw a line with their own players. And say, if you do this, we will not support you. Well, I think you put that on the table. You put that on the table and say, we want to play hard, we want to play fair. There is a line, and if you cross that line, we will not support you.
Look, I think that's an excellent idea because what the clubs do, they do come out and support them even when they've done wrong. But I reckon that you're 100% right. It should be policy that when it's something like that, the club doesn't come out and support. The player takes his punishment on his own. They can give him the club can give him a representative, etc., and all that to help him. But by the same token, we don't want any public statement from the club supporting the player.
That's right.
I do agree with that. But as it is, I mean, every time somebody smashes into somebody's head, that the club supports them, they didn't see it happen. Or what gets me is they didn't see it happen. I mean, God, how many replays do they miss then? Yeah.
Look, they're treating people like dickheads, right?
They are. Yeah. And as I said in the chat, they roll out lawyers and all that to help them. But by the same token, I think it has got to that stage, Fiend, that one day somebody will go down, and he just needs a knock in the right place. We saw that happen in the cricket field.
Yep.
And somebody will die.
Yep. And you don't want to see it. I just don't want to see it. And so I don't want to labour it any further. That's my opinion. I hope that the clubs take a stronger stance. B Packer in the chat asking to name our round one team. That's what next week's episode is going to be all about. So for those of you who have joined us on YouTube for the first time, or you're not a subscriber yet, please give us a subscribe and a like and chuck the notifications on. We're on every Sunday night. But subscribing will get us into the algorithm a little bit more, so we really appreciate your support on that one. As I mentioned earlier, Macca, if you're not on Discord and you're thinking that you want to get involved in a really solid footy community, we've got, how many people we've got on Discord these days, Mac? We've got 364 members on Discord now. That's amazing. So, and we'd love to have more. There's always good chat. There's always good banter during the games. There's always good banter and excellent chat during the live stream. So the links for those are in the descriptions of all our socials. And as I mentioned last week, as you can see down here, there's lots of opportunities for your logo to appear on the podcast. So if you are inclined to want to sponsor the CrowCast, there's plenty of opportunities. There's also ad spots in the audio as well, so you get good bang for your buck. So I'd be pleased for anyone who has a business and wants to support the CrowCast to give me an email at sponsorship.aflcrowcast.com. We're done, Macca, I reckon. We're done. And we still managed to bloody stretch it out to an hour and a half with that last topic.
Yep. Well, it was interesting.
All right. Well, thanks everyone for joining us. Thanks everyone on Twitter, Facebook, and of course YouTube. We will be back to preview round one next week at 8:30 on Sunday night. Until then, stay safe, be good, and have fun. Night all.
Okay. See ya. Bye.